Hey everyone, Israel is currently in a war against the terror organization Hamas, and we know how hard it can be to keep up with all the news. So if you haven't had the time to stay on top of the latest developments out of Israel, we're here for you. I'm Ladar Gavelazi, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review.
Day 110 of the war in Gaza, and the IDF is making steady progress in and around the encircled Hamas stronghold of Khan Yunis. The offensive is ongoing with intensive efforts underway to control the Hamas stronghold both above and below the ground. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovich.
IDF combined air and ground forces are continuing a wide offensive on West Khan Yunis, a densely populated area with Hamas gunmen confronting IDF forces in intense urban warfare. The offensive is ongoing, with intensive efforts underway to control the Hamas stronghold both above and below ground. Many Hamas gunmen were killed in the ongoing battles in the southern Gaza city and in tunnels under the city where Hamas leadership is believed to be hiding in deep underground tunnels.
חיסלנו ביממה האחרונה יותר מ-100 מחבלים במערב ח'אן יונס. אנחנו ממשיכים בלחימה בכל רצועת עזה, בצפון, במרכז ובדרום.
The IDF is proceeding cautiously in some areas due to fears that Israeli hostages are being held in and under Khan Yunis and may be endangered. Combat engineers are working to locate and dismantle both attack tunnels and underground infrastructure, dismantling dozens of Hamas facilities in the northern outskirts of the city.
ביממה האחרונה אנחנו מרחיבים את הלחימה בח'אן יונס, צוברים הישגים נוספים, ובמקביל ממשיכים להילחם בצפון הרצועה ומעמיקים את ההישג. אנחנו מחסלים ופוגעים במחבלים רבים, במפקדים רבים. מרצחי חמאס, מולם נמשיך לפעול בנחישות רבה.
The IDF chief also reflected on the heavy cost of the war after 24 soldiers lost their lives in a 24-hour period.
ביום הזה אנחנו חשים את מחירה הגדול והכואב של מלחמה. אך זו שאנחנו נלחמים כעת היא הכרחית וצודקת מאין כמוה. נמשיך להילחם למען זכותנו הברורה לחיות כאן.
And so joining us now with more on the war in Gaza and the ongoing fighting in Khan Yunis is Brigadier General in the Reserves Amir Aivi, founder and CEO of the Israel Defense and Security Forum. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rida.
So a very difficult day for Israel as 21 IDF soldiers were killed. There's still intense fighting going on in Khan Yunis, a Hamas stronghold. What can you tell us about the events of the last 24 hours?
So, talking about Khan Yunis, we have been attacking in Khan Yunis with 7 brigades. I don't recall in the history of Israel any battle where 7 brigades participated in the same battle. And our division, Division 98, that is commanding these brigades, is moving forward with the destruction of the Khan Yunis brigade, probably the strongest brigade in Gaza. This is the brigade of Sinwar, and we estimate that Sinwar and Def are in this area and probably also hostages. And as the IDF is surrounding and closing on this stronghold, we see, of course, Hamas trying to defend, and the fighting is fierce. But what is amazing to see is how the IDF adapted to underground warfare. We see our soldiers fighting in the tunnels, destroying terrorists in the tunnels, overcoming booby traps and improvised explosive devices, and moving forward in this very elaborate underground infrastructure. And this makes me very, very confident that it's just a matter of time until we see the collapse of Hamas. The IDF has learned fast how to adapt to this warfare. Yes, we have casualties. Yes, occasionally Hamas succeeds to hit here and there. But the overall picture is clear. Hamas is going to be eradicated. It's going to be destroyed. And every day, we're moving one more step towards reaching our goals of war.
So I do want to ask you, because, Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that Israel will stop at nothing short of full victory against Hamas. Meanwhile, though, Gadi Eisenkot and others in the war cabinet are casting doubt on this claim. So what's your take? Will Israel, in fact, be able to achieve a total victory over Hamas?
I'm sure 100% that we will, and I'm saying that professionally as a general. I am very worried about leaders showing weakness. We need at this time Churchills, not Chamberlains. And we need a confident leadership. I think we can really put our trust in the abilities of the Israeli Defense Forces. We have shown how we can destroy completely Hamas' ability to govern and manage militarily the northern part of Gaza. We're doing so now in Khan Yunis in a very successful way. I heard Brigadier General Goldfuss, the commander of Division 98, he gave us like a half-an-hour briefing. And you see a strong, decisive commander who knows exactly what he's doing. All the soldiers on the ground are sure of their abilities and success. And I wish all our leaders and society would be as strong and resolute as our soldiers are on the battleground.
And, I want to ask you, because there's a lot of international pressure for another ceasefire. How would a ceasefire now affect the IDF's mission in Gaza?
This, of course, will assist Hamas and then will require for us to renew the fight, and maybe we'll encounter more difficulties than we might have encountered without that. But we have the hostages. And we understand that the fighting against Hamas is going to be years until we really dismantle all the terror infrastructure. So if we have an opportunity to release the hostages, even if it means a few weeks of ceasefire, I think the government will probably agree to that. I trust that the IDF
to get all the hostages
will know how to renew what they need to do.
All right, Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Aivi, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.
Tehran is vowing revenge after an attack attributed to Israel flattened a building in Damascus used as a base for the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, killing 5, including a top general. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
5 Iranian Revolutionary Guards were killed in the weekend attack, along with an unnamed number of Syrian troops. The multi-story building was used by Iranian advisors supporting the Assad government and was destroyed by precision-targeted missiles. The casualties included the Revolutionary Guard's Syrian intel chief, his deputy, and 3 other Guard members. There was no confirmation from Israel, which rarely comments on alleged strikes in Syria. Noor News identified the dead intelligence chief as General Sadeh Omidzadeh. Iranian TV presented a message from President Raisi vowing revenge. Recent weeks have seen several alleged sorties carried out against sites in Syria as part of Israel's ongoing efforts to prevent Iran from supplying arms to its proxy Hezbollah, which has launched daily attacks on northern Israel over the past several months amid the ongoing war in Gaza. Defense Minister Gallant reportedly told his American counterpart, Lloyd Austin, that Israel was nearing a decision point on expanding military action against Hezbollah in Lebanon.
And moving on, diplomatic efforts to end the cross-border fighting with Hezbollah on the northern border have yet to make any progress. Israel will reportedly intensify its response if no agreement is reached by the end of this month. Meanwhile, a troubling increase in Russian military activity in Syria. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Israel plans to escalate fighting on the Lebanese border with Hezbollah by the end of the month if there is no long-term diplomatic agreement in place. That's the word from both Western and Lebanese officials, who told the Washington Post that the window for a diplomatic agreement between Israel and Hezbollah was starting to shut. The IDF continues to exact a heavy price on Hezbollah. An airstrike in South Lebanon killed 2 members of the Gaza-based Hamas terror group as they were traveling in a car. This as the IDF carried out several waves of airstrikes against Hezbollah targets in South Lebanon as the tit-for-tat cross-border exchanges continue. The sites hit include an observation post, rocket launch positions, and other infrastructure belonging to the terror group. Tanks also carried out shelling in the Mount Dove area to remove a threat. In a call, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told his American counterpart, Lloyd Austin, that Israel was nearing a decision point on Lebanon as Hezbollah presses its daily attacks on the northern border. Israeli officials said that Jerusalem still prefers a diplomatic solution, but will act if one is not achieved. Meanwhile, Moscow is increasing its military presence in Syria, announcing that Russian aircraft have begun patrols along the so-called Bravo line between Israel and Syria to monitor the situation. The not-so-subtle message to Israel: the Kremlin is displeased with Israel's alleged operations against Syria, Hezbollah, and Iranian interests, and is maneuvering for a reduction or cessation of these operations. This week, alleged Israeli airstrikes killed a top commander and 4 other Iranian Revolutionary Guard officers in Syria, with Tehran vowing revenge.
And IDF reservists have come up with a unique way to try to send messages to Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza's terror tunnels. It's old-style transistor radios blasting Army radio into the tunnel shaft, in the hope the hostages will hear it and know Israel has not given up on them. ILTV's William Sharon has more.
After capturing Hamas tunnels in the northern Gaza Strip, Israeli soldiers have been placing some unusual gear inside. Old-style dial-operated transistor radios. They headed deep into the tunnels until the devices could no longer receive AM transmissions from Israel. That was about 10 meters down and inside the upper stories of the Palestinian terrorist tunnel network. The chance that hostages could hear Israeli radio was increased after the government took steps to add greater range to the AM radio signal to give better reception for Israeli civilians in bomb shelters. Troops in Gaza are benefiting as they are being able to stay informed with their cell phones being taken away for security reasons.
We got a few thousands of them, and we are giving it to soldiers and to families that are still around the borders in the north and in the south.
The tunnel experiments holds out a chance to reach out to the captives with custom-composed morale-raising Army radio broadcasts.
The hostages, as we know, listened, some of them at least, listened to the radio. And when you're in Gaza, it's, again, it's better receiving of AM frequencies than the FM. And they listened to that before too. And now we're trying to get it to everywhere in Gaza Strip. Hopefully that it will get to the hostages as it happened before.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
And joining us now is the new Minister for Social Equality and Women Advancement Minister, Mai Golan. Mai, thank you so much for making the time for us today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Now, you were appointed this week by Netanyahu as the Social Equality Minister and really Women Advancement Minister too, both of them. What can you tell us about your plans, your will to do in this role? And really, are you going to continue the issue of women advancement? Because I know how important this was for you.
Yes, it was. And I'm grateful for you that you asked that, because it was very important for me. When I just entered this office for women advancement, which was historically formed in the state of Israel for the first time in 75 years, I was so eager to do for women what hasn't been done for so many years. You have to understand, women are 51% of the entire, population in Israel. And it was so important for me that women will be heard all over Israel, not just a sector of women in Israel. It was important for me that women from the south and the north, religious women, secular women, women that felt that they couldn't speak up and really get what they deserve and even dream to achieve what they deserve. So I will continue in this office, not just to help women around Israel, but to help all minorities to make their voice sound, just like I was a minority when I started out and really had no one to back me up. And I promise myself and the rest of the population that I will help as many young girls as me and young men as me to achieve their dreams and achieve really what they deserve to be in Israel.
Maya, and I think that women in general, Israeli women, are going through really hard times right now. In recent months, you led a campaign against women's and human rights organizations worldwide. Do you still think there's someone to rely on? Because, we've been all super disappointed from what we heard in recent months, from what we saw in recent months. Do you think there's still someone we can say, okay, we can turn to?
Well, unfortunately, and with a lot of pain, no. Absolutely not. And I think that the bubble of human rights organizations and women organizations especially has been burst up completely. Because today we know that women are not all women. Jewish voice of woman is not being heard. And when you're a Jewish woman, you can't expect that those organizations will defend you and make your voice be heard just like other women. And I don't think we will ever trust those organizations ever again. And you see that anti-Semitism is harder and stronger than feminism and is stronger than even, basic rights of women and men around the world, because not only women were sexually abused here, also men. But more than anything, you see that anti-Semitism is rising around the world in places that we have never imagined. In the end of the day, universities that talk about democracy, that talk about human rights, and most of all, we see the UN, for example, that is forming an independent committee to have research about the sexual assaults that happen in Israel. This is unheard of. You will never ask any woman or man that have suffered such brutal sexual assault and rape for proof. I've been interviewing to the BBC and to other places, and they've been asking me for forensic evidence. This is unheard of. I don't know if to laugh or cry about it, but I can tell you that what I'm going to do with this new office is, first of all, make the voice of Jewish women being heard all around the world, but more than everything, I won't let them rest. And when I say that, I mean that I will face them with the hard evidence, with women that their organs were chopped, with women that were brutally raped, and their bodies were completely mutilated, that they were hanged to trees after chopping their organs. This is what the anti-Semitic hypocrite organizations around the world will be faced every day until they will say what happened here is a massacre to women, and it will be heard.
Definitely. And during the campaign you led, did you receive any responses? Anything they told you, or nothing at all?
I've turned to every, and I've listed them, every possible human rights and women rights organization around the world, with letters, with emails, with videos. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We saw that even the head of the Red Cross committee, nothing. And we only saw a very weak, lame condemn. And we also see what happened in Hague, but we have to be honest. The majority of the states in Hague are Muslim countries. So to ask them to be objective about what happened here, about the massacre that happened to men and women, is almost absurd. So I take no regard about what they're saying. I have to tell you that I was the minority who wasn't sitting in front of the TV hoping to see what the court of Hague will say, or any international court for that matter. You can't expect Muslim dictatorships to tell us what to do in a real democracy. But the truth will be out there. Just like, it's just like the Nazis, after they, denied everything they did. And today we see that there's no way to go around it. This is exactly what will happen with what happened on 7th of October.
And not only that, I think that people that are coming here, influencers or people from all around the world coming to the South and see what happened here, they understand.
Exactly.
They have to see it with their own eyes. Maya, I want to turn to something else. There's tremendous pressure on Israel to progress towards establishing a Palestinian state, a two-state solution. What's your view on that?
Listen, for me, it's absurd. We don't give a reward to the new Nazis of 2024 as a state solution. But I want to tell you, everyone who pushes into a Palestinian state is pushing into a terror state, is pushing into a state that will basically abide by the law, the fact that you can rape women, slaughter men and women and children, make horrible things to their bodies, video it, and it will be all good and all okay. And you know what? I want to tell you another thing. The blood of the heroes, that was really the holy heroes, that was spilled here when they were protecting the basic right of the Jewish nation to exist, will not go to waste. And when I look at the Zionistic factory that we built here, whoever wants a Palestinian state wants to destroy the Zionist factory here. And you know what? If you see the polls around Gaza and around Judea and Samaria, over 75% of the residents there still support Hamas and still support the massacre that happened on 7th of October. So who exactly do we want to form a state to? And you know what? I want to tell you a last thing. When I go to interviews around the world, and usually I talk about what happened to women, I take this picture with me, the picture of Shiri Bibas and her two babies, and I talk about her and I talk about other women that suffer there. But in regard to your question, I want to say that whoever wants a Palestinian state wants this, wants women to be kidnapped, wants children to be burned alive, wants men that were chopped, with their organs and with their heads, and this is what they want, and we cannot allow it. We cannot allow it. If anyone wants the Jewish state to remain, unlike the dozens of Muslim states that we have, the dozens of African states, the only Jewish state that we have around the world, you can hardly see us on the map. If we want to maintain it, we have to keep away any absurd idea of a Palestinian state.
Mai, thank you so much. And this picture is definitely one of the most strong pictures, the strongest pictures of this war. Thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck with your new role.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Making its voice heard over the ongoing Gaza war as it convened a meeting today outlining an EU peace deal. At the meeting, the Israeli foreign minister and his counterparts from the Palestinian Authority and Arab states attended. The details in the following report. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz addressed the European Union Foreign Affairs Council on Monday in Brussels in a meeting also attended by his counterparts from the Palestinian Authority, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, and the Secretary General of the Arab League. Katz said he came to Brussels to focus on two main issues: bringing the hostages back home and restoring Israel's security after the October 7th attack. The meeting was convened to discuss the ongoing war against Hamas in Gaza and prospects for a comprehensive peace. EU Security Chief Joseph Borrell presented his 10-point plan for peace between Israel and the Palestinians, a plan which calls for the establishment of a two-state solution. Ahead of the meeting, the EU's diplomatic service sent a discussion paper to its 27 member countries suggesting a roadmap to peace in the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict. According to Reuters, at the heart of the plan is a call for a preparatory peace conference to be organized by the EU, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the League of Arab States, with the United States and the United Nations also invited to the gathering. This conference would take place even if Israel were to decline participation. The paper also calls for consequences for both sides should they reject the plan, though it does not elaborate on what the consequences would be. Yet, despite the grandiose plan, the EU remains deeply divided in its response to the war in Gaza, and it remains unlikely that the EU will be able to reach a consensus on the issue. For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at ILTV.tv or download the ILTV Plus app. That's it for ILTV's weekly review. Stay safe and see you next week.